Ja, herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe SE Talk und bei mir habe ich wieder ein Interview. Es ist, glaube ich, zwar kein Startinterview, aber ich habe kein anderes gefunden. Also es könnte, und Wandern ist schon ewig lang aus. Also schauen wir einfach einmal, was er uns so präsentiert. Es geht um die Altiplano Metals. Vielleicht kommt Ihnen das Logo bekannt vor. Das schaut nämlich so ähnlich aus wie die Benchmark Metals. Und der Grund ist aus ganz einfach, sie kommen auch aus demselben Stall, wollen wir es einmal so sagen. Und der Alastair McIntyre wird uns jetzt die Company, der CEO bei Altiplano, einfach einmal kurz vorstellen. Alastair, thank you for your time. It's very early in your morning, and I said in my German introduction, the logo looks a little bit similar like benchmark metals. And I said this is for one reason. You come from one office. It's not the right word. But how you say it is that you come from one group, I must say.
Yeah, well, thanks, Joe, and good morning, good afternoon. Yes, well, Benchmark, Altiplano, Cordis, a number of companies fall under the umbrella of the Metals Group, and the Metals Group is a collection of individuals and companies that have had a number of years of success with respect to understanding of the mineral industry globally, and as a result, we're able to share talent, share office space. And basically a number of us work on those similar projects and companies together. So we're one happy family, although we're independent companies. We have our own treasury, our own balance sheet, our own projects, etc. But often we're advising on those companies, or we have directors on companies. But we're able to, as I say, share a lot of opportunity together. Really good thing about Metals Group is simply because of its success globally with respect to projects that they've been able to bring in, like you've seen with respect to the lawyers project, the Benchmark, is that we see good opportunity to find assets because of the success of that group, that people want to be able to have opportunity to monetize their assets, et cetera, that they often come to us to basically see if there's an M&A opportunity. So as a result, we get to see a lot of good projects.
Mm-hmm. I think this is one of the key points or key success points of in our resource business, that you have a really good network, and when you have a bigger group and other companies and it's a big network and everybody knows each other and can help also, and I think this is a big point for success in general for each company.
Well, I would agree, and I think that philosophy lends itself to any business. I mean, those who are connected and ability to work together and bring in projects and opportunity, particularly from the capital markets perspective, these are very important features.
Mm-hmm. So coming to your company, so what you're doing?
Indeed. Yes, well, Altiplano is a little bit unique in many aspects. We are a revenue generator model. We basically have 1, 2, coming on to 3 potential opportunities with respect to production. And so we're able to use cash flow from these projects to fund additional opportunities around M&A, or more importantly, from an investor's perspective, use that funding to be able to use to explore large-scale exploration projects, because as you know, in the resource space, people who are in this space want to have access to upside. They want to have access to blue sky. So we use this cash flow to be able to focus on the development of these exploration projects. So it gives investors that balance between having exposure to cash flow and also having exposure to the upside of exploration.
Okay, then we come first to the production side, I think, and then maybe to exploration side, or the upside potential.
Sure, indeed. Yeah, well, basically, we've been operating at a project called Farion in Chile for a couple of years. We've been underground there at a iron oxide copper gold vein system. We've had a number of development headings over the past, say year. We're managing and focusing on optimizing output. The maximum output from this project is capped at 5,000 tons per month. And that's part of the Chilean small mining licensing regime, which is very good because you can effectively get underground quickly. So from that point of view, we've been able to extract over 100,000 tons in the last few years. We've been using that material, mainly selling it to a local processor and capturing the value in the copper and gold and using that to fund our operations. Now, having said that, that's what we've been doing in the past. What we're focusing on now going into the future is building a fit-for-purpose processing plant on site, 15 kilometers from our site. That will basically provide opportunity to crush, to grind, to float the material, capture a concentrate, and then use that concentrate to be able to sell to the open market. So it'll reduce our processing costs, it'll reduce our transportation costs, and we'll have better access to the contained metals. So this is in kind of a permitting process. We've done all of the early stage civil works that are required, the pouring of the concrete, the putting in of the power, the water, the perimeter fencing, the footings for the mill, etc. So we're now just waiting on that final stage to begin construction, and then we should be within sort of 3 to 4 months after final approval to get that done.
How much are the costs to set up this mill?
Well, this is something that we look at in terms of our business plan. Again, these are smaller assets. We're not looking at an escondida with hundreds or billions of dollars of capex. So these are small, small costs, small capital costs. So the mill itself is somewhere in the order of say $3 to $3.5 million to put everything in place, and then basically we're able to capture the content much more effectively, and there's a very, very quick payback period. So this is kind of a repeatable business model for us, and we focused on Farion. Farion has been proven to be a very good and productive asset. We can use that productivity to build the mill effectively and efficiently with respect to costs, and then we can focus on other assets that are similar, and they're easier to permit, they're easy to get underground, they're easy to extract mineral from underground with very little capital costs. And we have another project that we're focusing on 100 kilometers north that we can get into that a bit later in terms of the conversation. But that's kind of how the business plan works, and it's a very effective and very cost-effective process.
This mill is built up for 5,000 tons a month.
That's right.
First question is, make it not sense to go for a bigger license? So that
it does. Well, I shouldn't say it does. It ultimately does make sense to expand our operation. But the way that the processing and the application process works is that we make application for the size of the project that we are working on, so 5,000 tons. So therefore, we mirror that with a 5,000 ton processing plant. We won't and can't go over that limit, but in future, of course, once we have the mill permitted, once we have it in operation, then we can look at the bigger picture. We can expand our underground to 50,000 tons with the right technical work, and of course, with the appropriate licensing and permitting. Then we can also do a similar process at the mill. But it's a step-by-step process. So we'll focus on where we are now in small steps and get everything sort of packaged up, and we have opportunity to expand. And what's interesting with respect to that expansion is that we have a geological setting and a permitting setting within the Farion region, which basically covers two other assets, which is the Rosario project and the Laura project, which are within 300 and 600 meters from Farion itself. So should we choose to expand regionally, we have opportunity under permitting to expand to at least 10,000 tons. Rosario has had underground historical work from a number of years ago. It has returned reasonable numbers with respect to historical production. We've recently gone underground and dewatered the facility, taken some samples, and had pretty good results. Upwards of 6% copper and over 1.5 grams of gold on average. Basically 2.8% copper and almost 0.5 gram of gold. So it's good, productive.
That brings me to a point. The 5,000 tons per month, is this per mine, or is it also the same setting for the mill? So to speak,
right.
So we have Rosario and Laura, for example, and when we can go from them also 5,000 tons a month, for example, that you get a a separate small mining license, then you need 15,000 tons in your mill.
That's right.
That you can work on it. So is this a possibility that you go this direction and say, okay, then we need a bigger mill, but for this mill we need a different permit, or it will work with the same permit, then this is a separate mine or something? I have no clue how this in Chile works.
Yeah, no, it's quite basic, honestly. I mean, we do, as I say, have the license or the permit to expand operations at Farion, and using Laura as an example. Should we choose to make that decision and invest the capital to extract the material, that we indeed would need to have a separate permit for a mill. So we'd have to build some new facility, and we can leverage off of some of the infrastructures in place at our mill site currently. But yes, indeed, we would need to have a separate processing system for that. Now, if we were to advance that to a much higher permit amount, then things are a little bit different. But in the first instance, this is what we would see. Now, just one last point on that is that, with respect to Laura, if indeed we were to move forward, we can do the same that we're doing at Farion now. We can extract that material and sell it to Anami and capture its value without having to do our own processing and determine whether or not, it's economic, it makes a bit of sense, and all those sorts of things. I think the very important thing sorry, Joe, is to take into consideration that we look at this a little bit differently than most sort of mining companies or major mining companies, that we don't invest a lot into the technical work of drilling holes and getting results and getting resources and building out reserves, that these are smaller projects, that we understand the geology, we understand the risks, we haven't done feasibility studies, but we understand with a steeply dipping vein structure, with the number of drill holes, that we have the confidence to be able to continue the mining with little capital costs. So that's the kind of difference between these projects and some of the bigger ones who indeed look at a resource and reserve and mine life and all those major technical issues.
That's it's a little bit similar like the old techniques that used also in Europe. I was 10 years or 15 years ago in a mine, in a tungsten mine in Portugal, and they have only 1 or 2 years mine life, I must say, but they work now for over 120 years. So then they are not interesting to drill too much, then it's too expensive. They follow only the vein. And
that's exactly right.
And this is a kind of similar thing. You know exactly what it is. You take this material out, you can take out 5,000 tons a month, and then now you're starting to process it, proceed it by your own. You start your own process or your own mill, and before you use a contractor. The difference, the economic difference between you say their own mill and the contractor, what you use. We saw here some numbers from the last 5 quarters. US revenue, what you generate. Revenue generating is interesting, but on the other side, I have cost. What cost me the production of this 5,000 tons a month? So
yes.
What is what do make profit from this separate thing, not the exploration, what you do with the money. So only when you look at this production, this mine, what is the profit, what you get out now with the old system, and what do you think you get out when you have your own mill running?
Well, I mean, those are interesting questions. The way that we account for the production, revenue, sales, etc., coming out of Farion is a little bit different than you would normally expect with respect to selling a concentrate or selling metal, because you have a very clean price with respect to the copper market. In terms of how sales work with respect to a third-party processor, or for example, Anami, is that they provide a revenue based on the grade of material that is in the mineralized copper gold that we sell to them. So as you deliver material to them, they price with respect to the material. They provide an early credit, and then they do a certain amount of work to determine, from an assay perspective, the total value, and then effectively they give a final settlement. So that's a process of where the mineral prices are and also the processing costs. And so it's a very fluid equation as you move along, that moves up and down with respect to grade, moves up and down with respect to copper prices. So, once we get into the situation of having our own mill, we'll remove some of that grind, because of course the mineral processor has its profit to make on all those various levels. As we have our own facility, then we can reduce those costs significantly with respect to its operating costs. We expect to see that we'll have a 33% reduction in our processing costs and reduce our transportation costs by 75%. So we're seeing probably about a 5 times leverage of what we'll see once we get the mill in operation.
Do you produce then in your mill a final product, or also a high concentrate, but really high concentrate, and you sell this high concentrate then to the third party?
Exactly, yes. It will produce a high value and high copper concentrate, probably 26.5% copper concentrate, and maybe just over a gram of gold, gram and a half of gold. And we can sell that to local local concentrate purchasers, or we can also sell it back to NAMI as well, but at a much cleaner pricing formula, because we've taken all of the risk out of, not risk, but we've taken all of the processing out of the equation, so to speak.
And you have more control what you really get.
Indeed, and look, it's the processing side and the pricing side, particularly the base metals, has always been a complicated process. Whether you have treatment charges, the smelting charges, the refining charges, the transportation charges, etc. 1 month pricing versus a 3-month settlement. So it's a kind of a very unique to the base metals market. There is a very, very complex pricing formula. And having the ability to bring it down to a more simple level with respect to contained copper, you can manage that process much easier.
So now brings me to the last 2 questions about this project. First is, when you think you make your decision to build up this mill, and the second is sorry to interrupt you. So and the second is, when you think you come to a decision to maybe start with production or go for a small mining license for Laura and Rosario.
Yeah, those are good questions, and from our perspective, we basically will finalize the work that we're doing on Farion, finalize the work on the El Peñón mill. And then we are in a situation to immediately look to effectively increase our interest in a larger mining permit. I would say that first step will involve doing more underground drilling. We've recently bought an underground drill, and with that drill, we will do a number of drill holes and a kind of a fan aspect from underground, just to get more confidence in our understanding of the geology and the engineering. Typically, it's a iron oxide copper gold, vein structure, dipping at 72 degrees. It's anywhere from 1.5 to as much as 8 meters wide in terms of its width, grades of 1.5 to 2.5. But we want to ensure that is continuous, and in order to support further development, and in order to support doing new engineering and technical studies to increase its output. So that's the first step. It's a long answer to the first step. And then once we have that information, we're in a very good situation to look to expansion. Laura and Rosario's side, yeah, that's something that is there. It's something we want to look at fairly soon. I wouldn't necessarily put an immediate timeline on it. It's kind of in our back pocket. We do have perhaps a more interesting project to the north of us by about 100 kilometers or so, Maria Luisa, and that has very high grade results. So we did some work a couple of years ago. We've done some drilling. We saw very good high grade results. There has been historic mining on the property itself. The grades of 6.89 grams per ton gold, around 1.9% copper. So we are basically doing some engineering studies now to determine its access point with respect to doing a decline. then moving forward with respect to that permitting process, again with the local authorities. And so that would be our next immediate target is to get some revenue from this asset, Mary Louisa. We've just recently finalized or renegotiated a deal with the owner, where we picked up that option agreement now, moved from a profit sharing arrangement to having a full ownership through option, basically that's a better deal for us. That we'll have complete control over sales, and we basically will have a 3-year process to do this. But throughout that period, we have some payments to the owner, but we don't need to or won't have a profit sharing arrangement as we are producing or probably taking mineralized material out of the mine.
And this Maria Luisa project, should this run also under a small mining license, like 5,000 tons a month?
It is indeed, yes. And the benefit of the 5,000 ton per month permitting or size project is the permitting process is fairly quick. There's minimal capital costs that you would look at in terms of your risk. We do have some good geological information. We've done, as I say, drilling and some sampling, et cetera, to support, going underground. But again, this is, something that's in the order of under $1 million to be able to go in and begin this work and not spend, tens of millions of dollars on drilling to determine whether or not you're going to do it. We can get underground for very little or minimal, I should say, capital expenditure, and while doing that, be rewarded with being able to sell what we extract.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you do this like the same what you do with your other project. You sell first is to a third party, to a contractor, yes. And he processes this ore.
Yes.
Okay.
And
just
one final point on that is that with respect to grade, as I mentioned, the local price for this material is around $250 a ton. So you produce 4,000 tons. That's it's $1 million in revenue, kind of right away, and operating costs, transportation costs, selling costs. You can probably pick up at least a good margin of say 50-60% on that. So it's a good return.
And the difference from the price from the ton ore price is about the gold that you have 6.8. Roughly
yes,
gram.
Exactly.
So and not 1 gram or less one. So that the difference is the higher gold content on the Maria Luisa.
Exactly.
Okay. You have other projects. Do you have other projects what you're working on? I see this.
We've also and again this is into our kind of revenue generator model that basically helps us. Focused on exploration projects, is that we picked up San Pedro late last year. We basically have an arrangement with the vendors to basically acquire the San Pedro asset, which is in Nicaragua. It's in kind of south central Nicaragua, around some of the producing assets that are in country. It's very prospective in the sense that it's 16,000 hectares. It has 15-kilometer strike length that contain gold-bearing quartz veins. There are a number of deposits on the site. There's been sampling and some limited drilling that's shown as much as 20 grams of gold per ton. So very good, very prospective. Falls into very much that of projects that we like. Using that metals group analogy and the benchmark analogy, it's similar to what the Lawyers project was when it was first looked at from the exploration side. It's a large scale, has numerous deposits, has lots of information, lots of opportunity. So that's what we look to bring to our shareholders is, of course, using this cash flow to be able to develop and explore on projects like San Pedro. Now, having said that, we still need to finalize that agreement. We have the structure in place to bring it into the company. We just need to get the final approval from the Nicaraguan government, and it's kind of been sitting for a little bit here. We need to get a bit of work done to close off that deal. Then we can start the exploration very quickly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so you have these two kind of business. One is this revenue generating business from a small scale mining in Chile. gold, copper stuff. One mine you can produce 5,000 tons per month, and now is the decision to make your own mill there, so to increase your economics on this project, and also to look for other project, or maybe the idea is to bring other veins also in production with this small mine license, to generate more cash flow for your exploration. And one maybe potential project for exploration is the San Pedro in Nicaragua. Nicaragua, political risk.
Well, mining always comes with political risk when you're outside of Canada, US, or Australia. In some cases, you have political risk within those countries. I would say that Latin America has always been a destination, particularly for Canadian companies, to look for opportunity, particularly in South America, particularly Chile. Chile's ranks kind of number 4. Chile's always been a great place to operate. The other areas, within country or in the continent, Ecuador has been kind of plus or minus, has been in and out. And other areas have shown risk. Nicaragua is emerging. There's always, I say, some risk. And we still see that little bit of risk because we're sort of waiting to finalize the claim situation there. But overall, the country understands that it's important to access foreign capital. Mining has proven that it's been very, very productive, to use the pun, in terms of the ability to bring in cash, to bring in opportunity to employ people. And we're seeing that now. There's, Calibre is working on a PEA, and we see that that Mako has been producing for a year and a bit. Condor is doing a resource estimate, trying to build out a mine there. So there's support within the country to do work. It's just, as you say, the political risk, and sometimes those countries don't operate in the same fashion that North Americans or Canadians or Australians expect in terms of their governments to line things up and get it moving. So there's just that process that you need to follow through. So yeah, some risk, but if it was a risk that we felt we would have resource nationalism or lose the asset, we wouldn't go into an area that created that kind of risk.
Calibre and Condor are also very popular in Europe. Then they have they do a lot of work in the German-speaking area too. So that's is also interesting for the other ones how the political risk looks. One of my last question is, before I come to the shareholder structure, what are the 3 major news what we can expect from your company in the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, and of course, good questions. We would expect, of course, that we will move forward with respect to our processing at El Peñol. We basically have our application in place. We should expect something imminent with respect to, we've done all the work, made our presentation, answered some questions. We're now just waiting for that sort of final approval step. Of course, we have San Pedro that's been with the government there. We expect that they will release some good news to us in the short term. But also, we are looking at being able to go underground at Mary Louisa. So that's 3. But, I think the 4th thing, which is perhaps more interesting and more important, is that, as a growth company, as a company that's basically looking to present good value to its shareholders, is that we're acquisitive. We want to bring on more projects, both on the exploration side and also on the production side. So we're not going to sit back and rest on our laurels and say, hey, great, we've got approvals for these things. Now we can just sort of sit back and be happy. From my perspective as CEO, really interested to grow the company around assets. So we've got a couple of projects that we're looking at, both on the exploration side, both on the production side, again, the smaller asset style. So we basically would like to bring in that type of thing. Now, if those who are listening and do go to the presentation, you can see on one of the slides is that we have an operating area within Farion or La Serena where there are over 100 projects, 100 mines within 100 kilometers of where we operate. So there's good opportunity to consolidate. there's a lot of these types of projects that are out there. A lot of families have these projects who, they want to either shed them or find an arrangement to do a profit share. So that's it. That's what I think we're going to do. We're going to grow. That's my interest.
Shareholder structure.
Yeah, well, we basically, we did about 3 raises in the last year. Nothing sizable. It's kind of the $1, the $2, the $3 million levels. The most recent one was in about 3-4 weeks ago. So as a result, we were able to raise in total about $6 million in the last 12 months, and that money's been put forth to the mill construction. It's been put forth to further underground development, and it's put forth to some assets that we're looking to acquire. Plus, we have at the moment about $3 million that's in the bank basically. Some warrants that are out there. Basically we have two sets of warrants from those financings at 40 cents, and also we have some at 25 cents. And we have a number of options that are out there. So we've kind of, with the shareholder structure and in the money warrants and the options, we be able to pull those in and be able to bring in another $3 million. So, total sort of shares outstanding at 113 million or so. That's a reasonable structure. And what we're trying to keep down is, of course, that dilution. And, that will come with respect to once we get, carrying on operating at our mill level and be able to increase our cash flow. That a lot of these initiatives with respect to the projects that we have can be somewhat self-funding. I think there'll always be a need and requirement and opportunity to go to the market and do further, private placements, but more so for those bigger tickets and bigger opportunities of bringing in new assets. So sure, you might have a bit of dilution, but you increase your value, so the shareholder structure, still remains being quite tight.
Biggest groups from the shareholders. Do you have some big groups or bigger groups there?
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I would say that it's pretty much been more of a retail story, and there are larger high net worth individuals who have reasonably sized positions. Management and insiders have maybe 13-14% of the company. But at this point in our business, that we've yet to attract, the larger institutional side, those who would follow the company and basically put out analysis, et cetera. So that's our next step. Once we get a little bit more center of gravity, particularly around the exploration side and good projects that we can do some exploration work on, then we'll attract those institutions much easier.
Is the money enough to do also to play or to go into construction from the mill, or you need another raise?
No, we have we're pretty much funded for the work at El Peñón. And we have a couple of more items that we're expecting to receive, but essentially have been paid for. And most of the civil work's been done. We have a little bit of cost remaining in terms of that final basically build. But we shouldn't be in a situation where we need to go to the market to raise to complete the mill. I mean, that's basically what we have in terms of our current treasury. And just one note on that, and not to sort of switch gears, but the mentioning that equipment that we've ordered, we're working on 2 very interesting aspects of our mill. We will install within the circuit a dewatering system, and that will produce a dry tailings, which is very, very exciting because it reduces freshwater content by 75%. And in addition, we will have an iron separator, and that iron separator and the dewatering and the production of a dry tailings will reduce tailings output by 45%. Plus, we capture that high value of iron oxide that we can sell, generally for, if it's trading even at 150 per ton, which has been as high as 200, but at 150 per ton on 2,000 tons, you're looking at $300,000 just to be paid to take your waste away. So it's a very good, very efficient process. And I think very unique to Chile in the sense that of how we're producing our dry tailings. And so we're excited by that, reducing our sort of environmental footprint there.
Sounds great. And so thank you for the introduction to your company, and maybe we have time to do another interview in 4 or 5 months when you're coming up maybe with the decision to go into the construction, or you already are in construction, so that's maybe we can see then some pictures from them. That would be also great, and maybe get some information from, or very exciting information about, maybe from exploration side, or maybe also from the consolidation side. You say this 100 kilo, so there are many possibilities what you may be coming up with a positive news flow.
Indeed, and I think the next 4 to 5 months will be quite exciting. And quite frankly, I mean, the last 12 months were very good months, despite how difficult COVID has been for all of us in this business, in any business. But we were able to accomplish a lot in 12 months, which included a number of these deals that we put together, and started our work both underground at Ferion and also with respect to the mill completion. So we're excited by the next number of months. And Joe, when we're back, I hope to be able to say that all those things that I said and those 3 important things have come together.
Yeah, thank you for the first introduction.
Joe, thanks very much.
Thank you. So, das war jetzt eine erste Einführung von Altiplano, und das ist viel Information. Ich versuche das jetzt einfach kurz zusammenzufassen. Also erstens einmal, sie kommen aus der Metals Group. Metals Group ist uns vor allem auch bekannt durch Benchmark. Benchmark war ja einer der Raketen, bin ja auch selber ja Aktionär von Benchmark, und die arbeiten halt dort in einer Gruppe zusammen und unterstützen sich auch, dann Office Sharen, und haben natürlich auch Direktoren, die teilweise gleiche, und das macht es natürlich auch extrem spannend, weil die natürlich voneinander profitieren. Wenn einer einen Erfolg hat, hat der andere auch einen Erfolg, weil er halt einfach auch von dem Erfolg auch ein bisschen mitziehen kann. So, was machen sie? Also sie haben a Small Mining License, und es ist in Chile so, dass sie dort 5000 Tonnen von einer Mine pro Monat produzieren können. 5000 Tonnen ist nicht so viel, bei 1,8 Gramm und teilweise bis 1,8% bis 2,1% Kupfer ist es allerdings auch schon was, und sie haben auch schon Revenue produziert, also sie produzieren jedes Monat Umsatz. Dieses Erz verkaufen sie an einen Dritten. Und da kriegen sie, je nachdem wie viel Kupfer das halt drinnen ist und auch teilweise wie viel Gold und so weiter drin ist, kriegen sie halt Geld. Und das ist da dementsprechend auch beschrieben. Sie sehen sie hier in dem, teilweise einmal 800.000 Umsatz, teilweise nur 300.000 Umsatz. Hängt halt davon ab, wie viel Kupferanteil ist und wie hochgradig das ist und. Und natürlich der Kupferpreis, wo er natürlich gerade steht. Jetzt haben sie überlegt, sie machen eine eigene Mühle mit Flotation Plant, und für diese 5000 Tonnen. Und er hat das jetzt sehr, sehr gut auch beschrieben. Das hat jetzt, glaube ich, nur den extra Kick zum Schluss gegeben. Sie reduzieren dabei die Tracking-Kosten, also die Transportkosten um 75%, die Prozesskosten um 33%. Natürlich kriegen sie ein bisschen an Profit, natürlich auch, was der Verarbeiter normalerweise macht, kriegen sie natürlich auch damit. Einer Waste-Produkt, zum Beispiel, sie werden einen trockenen Abraum produzieren, keinen feuchten Abraum, sondern das ist großteils eigentlich Wasser, sondern einen trockenen Abraum. Diesen trockenen Abraum können Sie auch verkaufen, weil das sehr eisenhaltig ist und sehr metallisch ist. Wahrscheinlich werden Sie es in der Bauindustrie und so weiter verwenden und kassieren dafür, hat er eben gesagt, ja, im Monat durchaus $300.000 Einnahmen zu haben, ist da durchaus möglich. Und Wasser wird reduziert, 75% und. Also sehr, sehr viel wird da passiert, und dadurch erhöht sich natürlich ihre Wirtschaftlichkeit. So, das Spannende ist, oder dass das nicht nur ein Projekt ist, sondern eigentlich haben sie mehrere solche Venen gleich nebeneinander liegen. Hier ist die Lava-Ven, hier ist Rosario-Ven, und dort überlegen sie genau dasselbe zum Modell zu machen. 5000 vielleicht Tonnen nur zu produzieren, weil das sehr schnell geht, dass sie dort in Produktion sind. Natürlich ist es ein Thema, dass man generell dann eine große Lizenz aufbaut, dass man dort 50.000 Tonnen gleich einmal verarbeiten kann, aber das sind halt andere Permittings, die sie laufen müssen, und das wird sich halt erst alles entscheiden. Sie haben auch noch 100 Kilometer entfernt einen Gold-Kupferproduzenten, einen alten Gold-Kupferproduzenten, die Maria Luisa. Dort fangen sie jetzt auch an mit diesem Small-Scale Mining License. Die hat aber viel höheren Gehalt an Gold. Deswegen können sie das Erz auch um die $200 pro Tonne verkaufen, also nur das Roherz. Und wenn sie dort 4.000 Tonnen oder 5.000 Tonnen produzieren, dann sind das schnell mal 1 Million pro Monat. Und genau das ist in die Richtung, wo sie geht. Das heißt, es kann relativ schnell diese Company in die Umsatzgröße von, sage ich einmal, 3-4 Millionen im Quartal hochgefahren werden. Im Quartal, klingt noch immer nicht viel, ist allerdings schon gar nicht so wenig dann. Das sind dann im Jahr so 16 Millionen. Das wäre durchaus eine Möglichkeit, die sie erreichen können innerhalb der nächsten, sage ich mal, 1 Jahr, 1,5 Jahre. Und mit diesem Geld können sie vor allem Explorationsprojekte, wie zum Beispiel das San Pedro-Projekt in Nicaragua, hochziehen. Nicaragua ist uns relativ bekannt von Calibre oder Condor Gold, die sind bei uns auch sehr bekannt und die soll dann dementsprechend mit dem Cashflow produziert werden. Geld für diese Erweiterung, Blend und so weiter sollen sie haben. Sie haben erst vor kurzem ein Raise gemacht. The last private placement round, with which price was this? What was the price of the placement?
Yeah, it's 25 cents.
25 cents, okay.
And 40 cent warrant, yeah.
Okay, 25 Cent, momentan sind wir bei 37. Man sehen, die haben irgendeinen schönen Run gehabt. I see now your share price. You have a really pretty good run end of April from 30 cents to 50 cents. What was the reason why the share price is going up like this?
Well, I think that, a lot of people are beginning to, see and understand the story and see that there's a good value in Altiplano. So also we saw some movements in the metals price, things were sort of coming all together. So I think that, people recognize that there's a good story here and it's time to invest.
Okay. So, also das ist das Ding und Geld sollten sie aber für die Mühle und so weiter haben. Also das sollte jetzt nicht das Thema sein. Das haben sie mit dem letzten Raise bekommen. Wenn er, und da kommen wir jetzt zu dem nächsten Punkt, das ist ein Revenue Generator Model. Er sagt, Sie sitzen hier da in der Mitte und im Umkreis von 100 Kilometer gibt es einen Haufen Minen, die von kleinen Familien und so weiter betrieben werden, die es durchaus eine Möglichkeit besteht, diese zu konsolidieren. Und ich glaube, das könnte ein extrem spannendes Thema werden, wenn die dort wirklich hergehen können und können dort ein paar Projekte konsolidieren. Das würde einer wahrscheinlich auch nicht so viel kosten, haben aber das natürlich sehr, sehr schnell verkürzt, also was vor allem die Produktion betrifft und natürlich auch die Effizienzsteigerungsmaßnahmen, die sie dort setzen können. Der ganze Genehmigungsprozess ist abgekürzt, weil ja schon in Produktion. Also das könnte extrem spannend sein und da könnte man vorstellen, wenn da ein paar Sachen kommen, dann ist der Aktienkurs natürlich woanders. Sie sind in guter Position, um von diesem Metal-Price-Anstieg, den wir jetzt haben, zu profitieren. Also finde ich spannend. Ich habe mir auch schon mal ausgemacht, dass wir sie in 3-4 Monaten wieder ein Interview machen, denn das könnte uns dort einmal in eine andere Richtung bringen, in eine andere Größenordnung. Denn 300.000-400.000 Umsatz haben wir jetzt noch nicht vom Hock, da brauchen wir nicht reden, das ist mir zu wenig, da muss schon ein bisschen mehr Fleisch dahinter kommen, wegen dem machen wir da keinen Aufstand. Aber das ist spannend und ich werde jetzt, das war es auch von heute, heute ist der 20. Mai 2021, Altiplano Metals und ich werde jetzt nur ein bisschen kurz einmal auf den Zahn fühlen wegen diesen potenziellen Übernahme. Tschüss und Baba, pfiat euch. Thank you for your time.
Joe, thank you. Very good. Enjoyed it very much. Thanks.